Right boys, welcome to the 30-second video on my channel. Every league has heroes, and then there are the players that the fans love to boo. The ones who wind up the crowd, celebrate a bit too hard, or just always seem to score against your club. Today we're delving into the EFL's most hated footballers, not because they're bad players, but because they live rent-free in opposition fans' head. At number 10, we've got Caleb Watts. One of the most hated players in the Southwest at the moment. Watts was recently an Exeter City player, but he really became hated when he made the switch to Plymouth Argyle, Exeter's arch rivals. Exeter and Plymouth don't like each other at all, and when a player moves directly between the two, emotions instantly boil over. There's no doubt Plymouth would have offered him loads more money, but they are in the same league at the end of the day, and massive rivals. To Exeter fans, it felt like a betrayal. Watts had worn the shirt, played in the derby atmosphere, and knew exactly what rivalry meant. So seeing him turn out for Argyle rubbed salt straight into the wounds. At number 9, we've got Harry McCurdy. Harry McCurdy is one of those players who seems to annoy fans before he's even touched the ball. He's built a reputation for his somewhat over-the-top celebrations, very visible on social media, add in the fact he's played for multiple EFL clubs, and you get a situation where a lot of fan bases have a memory for him, usually scoring, celebrating, or saying something they didn't like. Despite all this though, he's a cracking player to have on your team, and a massive shithouse of a footballer. At number 8, we've got Ollie McBurnie. Ollie McBurnie's reputation comes down to how he plays and how visible he is when he's doing it. First off, he's a classic target man, big, physical, and happy to battle centre-backs all game. For opposition fans, that often translates to he's always fouling or he's always going down, even when he's just using his strength to win duels. McBurnie also has one of those faces and smug body languages that crowds can latch onto. In short, Ollie McBurnie is hated because he's physical, confrontational, and constantly involved. He makes matches messy, and messy football is always a magnet for boos. At number 7, we've got Josh Bowler. A bit like Caleb Watts, Josh Bowler's dislike ramps up because of the Preston North End to Blackpool connection. The West Lancashire derby, one of the most hostile rivalries in the EFL. Bowler joined Preston on loan from Nottingham Forest in August 2024 for the first half of the 24-25 season. That loan spell was cut short in January 2025, and after also spending the second half of that campaign on loan at Luton Town, Bowler mutually terminated his contract at Nottingham Forest. In September 2025, Bowler then returned to Blackpool on a permanent deal. For Preston fans, any link to Blackpool instantly puts Bowler in villain territory, and for Blackpool fans, his rivals, it reinforces the idea of him as a wind-up merchant who thrives in hostile environments. Before we carry on with this video, I just want to reiterate that this is no personal attack to any players on this list. I'm purely going off fan perception, so please don't think this is any personal attack. At number 6, we've got Norman Bassett. Currently on loan at Stade de Reims in France, but still contractually an EFL Championship player, so we're going to include him. When Bassett arrived at Coventry City from Cannes in 2024, supporters hoped to be a lively attacking threat, but despite 25 Championship appearances and just 2 goals, many fans felt he never delivered consistently on the pitch, leading to frustration and criticism about his effectiveness. A Coventry fan pundit even suggested Bassett sometimes acted like he had a superstar mindset, quotation marks, like Ibrahimovic, despite not showing that level of quality, and that he's burned bridges at clubs by not settling in well. One moment that really grated with opposing fans came in a dramatic match versus Sheffield United. Bassett goaded a defender into a red card and then celebrated with a wink and a kiss gesture, which safe to say polarised a few viewers. Some saw it as gamesmanship and others saw it as obnoxious. On number 5, we've got Tommy Conway. In other words, that polarising striker at Middlesbrough. Criticism mainly comes from Borough fans. Some fans online have complained that he's not scoring enough relative to expectations, with comments like he couldn't score in a brothel, and that he's not good enough as the main striker for a team chasing promotion. Others even say he's thrown himself on the ground and whined, or that referees don't buy his penalty appeals anymore. Before his move to Middlesbrough, Conway was reportedly sent to train with the under-21s at Bristol City because of contract talks breaking down, which some fans saw as him being unprofessional or too focused on a move away rather than contributing. Number 4, we've got Milutin Osmajic. Osmajic has ended up as one of the most disliked, or at least most controversial, footballers in the EFL. Osmajic was handed a 9-match suspension, fined £21,000 in order to complete an education course after a Football Association Regularity Commission found that he racially abused Burnley midfielder Hannibal Mejbri during a championship game. The FA ruled the comments amounted to an aggravated breach involving a reference to colour or race. With that being said, Osmajic denies the allegations and Preston backed him, saying the decision was on the balance of probability. Following the incident when Preston played Burnley in the FA Cup, Burnley players refused to shake his hand before kick-off in solidarity with Mejbri. A rare and ugly scene showing how deep the fallout went among rival players and fans alike. But this wasn't just an isolated blip, as Osmajic had already received a long ban and fine the previous season for biting an opponent, meaning critics see him as a hot-headed, ill-disciplined and repeat offender. Going off the above, he pretty much mirrors Luis Suarez. At number 3, we've got Patrick Bamford. Despite being very well liked and a hard-working pro, Bamford has ended up as one of the more divisive figures among fans, which makes him a solid pick for a most disliked / hated polarising championship figure. A huge chunk of the criticism stems from Bamford's lack of goals and big chances missed over recent seasons, especially for a striker on big money. Many fans publicly called him a liability, with criticism about blown chances, poor finishing, and simply not doing the one job fans expect most from a forward. He struggled with frequent injuries that kept him from building rhythm and form, which only fuels frustration. Some supporters describe him as having bones like digestive biscuits and lament that he never seems fully fit. A few moments which also didn't help his reputation was when he publicly criticised tactics while at Leeds, which some pundits like Chris Sutton said was poor judgment and undermined his manager. Viral clips surfaced of him joining an abusive chants against a future manager, Chris Wilder, which many saw as poor form, even if meant in rivalry spirit, and it's more recently come back to bite him as he actually plays for Chris Wilder. And not to mention the fact he also plays for Yorkshire rival Sheffield United. And number 2, we've got Ben Pearson. Pearson has built a reputation as a tough tackling, no-nonsense holder midfielder, but that comes with an absurd number of yellow cards and red cards. He's been booked dozens of times and sent off multiple times in the Championship, which annoys opposing fans who see him as an overly aggressive or reckless. There have been plenty of moments, like a challenge on Derby's Tom Lawrence, where pundits said he was lucky to stay on the pitch, and he's just that stereotypical niggly midfielder. He's not a creative star, he's the kind of player who frustrates attackers and whips up dirtier battles. Now at number 1, there can be no one other than James McClean, the most divisive man in English football. Where do we even start? Refusal to wear the poppy, which immediately doesn't sit right with English fans, which immediately equals abuse in every stadium he goes to. He's received social media hate, death threats, security was once needed outside his hotel because of the scale of backlash. He's been fined by Stoke City for posting a picture of himself in a balaclava, teaching history to his kids. The recent incident where he punched a fan in self-defence after being verbally confronted in the stadium car park. But James McClean isn't hated because he's bad at football, he's controversial because of his personal beliefs and actions intersect with deeper political disputes. But anyway, yeah boys, and we'll end the video there. I do hope you enjoyed. Comment down below what sorts of videos you want to see next. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, see you in the next one.